Hi everyone, welcome to the Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social for a bit of a special today. We're introducing a new brand that hasn't once ever been mentioned on the channel. And
Never.
But we're very glad to have Patrick on from Christopher Ward. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Sam. Great to be with you guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, all good. Well, should we kick it off with a wristwatch check? Dave, do you want to kick us off with what you're wearing?
Oh, what am I wearing? I am wearing.
Quick, put a watch on.
Yeah, no, I'm actually. I'm wearing
Wow.
moonshine gold
Right.
because it's Sunday and I'm pretending I'm a baller when in actual fact I'm nothing of the sort. But yes, I'm wearing that because I hadn't actually worn it for ages because kind of I forgot where I put it and then I found it. But I probably shouldn't admit that.
Can we ask where it was, Dave?
I put it in a watch roll and then put the watch roll back in a box and put the box into a storage unit and assumed that it was empty and then couldn't find it. And then we thought,
Panic.
Then I thought I needed a watch roll for something else that I'm doing. And I went and found the watch roll and I went, that's a very heavy watch roll. And that's why it was heavy.
Wow, that would be a hell of a episode of Storage Wars.
Sensible, Dave. Yeah, you live and learn, so to speak.
I hope your insurance providers aren't watching tonight, Dave.
Who? Insurance?
Your
Your insurance company.
What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Next up, Colby, what are you wearing?
Well, for the occasion, I have on my Christopher Ward C63 SH21, now rebranded as the CW001 Snow Leopard.
Nice.
Cool watch.
Yep. I think
love it.
I think that's a watch that I should own, but it's not in my collection. That's one of the ones that got away.
Yeah, Mark, what are you wearing?
I am
Get away.
wearing two tonight. The C60 Concept and the progenitor of our conversation. Here is the original Zero Blue Belcanto.
Nice.
Awesome.
Wow.
Watch that started it all. Sort of.
Cool. And then Patrick, what are you wearing?
God, I'm glad I strapped on what for me is a big gun, going by the other wrist checks on here today. But I'm wearing my personal Belcanto Classic in Argento
Nice.
silver. So yeah, this has been mine for 6 or 7 weeks now, and I haven't really taken it off.
No, awesome.
It's a cool
was it
piece.
I don't remember. Was it released in that silver, or is that a prototype?
Yeah, there were the 4 colours at launch. Yeah, the blue, the green, the silver, and the gold. The silver and the gold were new. Yeah, no, it's great. There's lots of lovely things about working at Christopher Ward, but one of them is that after 2 years with the brand, you're gifted a watch of your choice essentially. So no LEs. But yeah, they're very, very generous in that they open up the collection for you to take your pick. And I must say, it was my 2 years in August last year. So I'll let you think about how long I waited for my Belcanto. But there's certainly no priority at all for internals on delivery. But no, absolutely adore it. I think I'm a better Belcanto salesman as a result of an ownership experience.
There you go. Okay, well, I thought it would be too on the nose if I wore a Christopher Ward also, so I wore my little Veya, got my little Veya G2, little Veya Quartz, the little nod to the Vintage Explorer 2, which I really quite like. Well,
Nice.
Well, everyone, as you probably guessed, we are talking about the new Christopher Ward Loco today. Keep your questions coming in the live chat for Patrick. If you've got any questions about the watch, about the launch, let us know in the comment section as we go through this. But Patrick, let's kick this off because it's been a pretty wild week for Christopher Ward. So how just walk us through how it's gone and the launch and everything.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, a wild week following several wild months, really, for us and the team. This week kicked off on Tuesday. Obviously, we had the bank holiday over here in the UK. Whoever's idea it was to launch the biggest piece in company history the week after a 4-day bank holiday. Won't be making the mistake again. But yeah, so we have Monday off, and then Tuesday we were in London at BAFTA, which is a gorgeous venue. for the screening, the sort of private premiere, if you like, of our film Freewheeling that we launched alongside the Loco. So that was a great night. Back late, myself and Jean, my colleague and producer of the film, had to come back to the office afterwards to safely store all these watches samples that we had. So that was a late night, and then Wednesday was the embargo lift, as you'll know, Sam. 7:00 on Wednesday, the embargo went live. We did it slightly differently to the way we normally work it, and I think it was quite good having the embargo lift a day or so before the actual watch goes on sale. So that was tremendously exciting because for anyone I haven't met, I'm PR manager at Christopher Ward, so my primary responsibility is getting us talked about and getting out there in watch world. Obviously, being direct to consumer, it's the online world and the watch community is our primary channel really in terms of spreading the word. So this, and then again, being the biggest launch and most significant launch we've had, that the work started a lot earlier than it normally would. So it was immensely satisfying on Wednesday evening to see some really, and the way we work with a lot of reviewers, as Sam and you'll know, and Dave as well, and Mark, for that, we don't tend to see any of the content before it goes live. So as much as we'd heard some good things and there was some good feedback and some pre-orders coming in from journalists as well, which is always a great sign, it really was sort of proof in the pudding, and seeing so much positivity go out. And also the other thing is, seeing that people had sort of picked up what we'd put down and understood the story was amazing. So that was a great Wednesday. And I'm rambling, but Thursday was launch day. So 3 p.m. On Thursday UK time, we launched, and it was brilliant. We flew over 2 of the admins from the Christopher Ward Forum from the States for the screening on Tuesday. And they stayed for the whole week, so they were just sort of floating around the office. The new office is a very open plan, just having the best time, and it was great. Everyone was in, and we had a war room where we put on the screen the geographies and who's on the site and all these metrics. So it was it was a really nice buzz. A great week.
Awesome. Well, you sort of answered one of our first questions. Who's this Patrick bloke? So,
well, I'll counter that with who's this Magnus Pigeon or Swan? Sorry.
Yeah, Swan. Yeah. I mean, that name rings a bell, but he's no Patrick, is he?
Wow, he will be, I'm sure.
That's for sure, he will be.
Once he's finished his studies.
Yeah, awesome. And okay, cool. So, I mean, I guess the question is, have you got any early sort of gauge on? I mean, there's so much to ask, isn't there? Like, what the colours? I mean, you didn't hold back with the colours, did you? You went straight in there. You didn't sort of play it cool with a few sort of monochrome things like you did the Bel Canto, which came out with that beautiful blue, but that was just that. So.
Yeah, but I think Bel Canto as Euro was a rare occasion that we did subtlety and holding back the best stuff early. Holding back some of the colours. So no, yeah, we came out with 4 punchy colours. Those of you that have seen the film will know that we did a real big sampling program essentially, and there was some much more classic and subtle muted tones as well that were sampled. But I think that the design team established fairly early that this is as much of a hypercar watch as we've ever made, and that it was more than fitting to go with what we think is hypercar colours. And I think we're legally allowed to say we had a good look at McLaren's website. McLaren's colour schemes were we're big fans of what they do. So yeah, I think we just wanted the colours to match up to the level of craziness really that was going on with that movement.
And do you have any idea so far which colour has been the most successful for the first drop?
Yeah, we do sweepstakes on this kind of thing in the office to entertain ourselves. And generally, for most launches, you'll see generally the most versatile colour taking a strong lead, on divers and the 12 and Sealanders and so on. We do some spicy colours, but it does tend to be the blacks, the blues, the white dials that take the lead. But what was amazing with the Loco right from the start was miraculously even colour split. So genuinely by Thursday evening, orange was well in the lead. I think the first piece to hit 100 sales was orange, which was great. It was the hero watch, as we say. So it was on the loop cover. It was sort of front and center on the website. So it was the one that we felt best, showed off the watch. So it was great to see that do well. And then blue and black were really very close behind, just a few units at a time behind. And then white, again, really not too far at all. I think by Thursday evening, it was pretty much 100 orange pieces, 90-something blue, 90-something black, and about 65 white. So really quite close, which was great. I think the designers take quite a lot of... really pleased with that, because obviously it's their decisions, and if one color is 0 sales, then that's clearly a mistake.
Like the Black Sand super compressor.
Sure.
Although
it's got its fan base.
Yep, I have one. I am its fan base.
Your chair.
Yes.
Well, Patrick, this might be a good time to reflect on Pedro Lopez's comments here. I was wondering. I read his comment, and he asked, "Is it a dress watch, a sporty dress watch?" And I was wondering about your thoughts on that. But kind of more generally, when CW designs a watch, do they say we're going to set out to design a dress watch, or we're going to set out to design a sports watch, or in this case, was it we just want to do X with the movement? And those aren't the categories we're thinking in.
Number two, the second thing you said. I think that I struggle to speak on behalf of our mad new product design team. But I think from speaking to them as regularly as I do, they don't look to get pinned down into a genre early on in a project. Obviously, the base for the Loco is the 12, which is a integrated sports collection. But the Loco, I think, those that know the sort of timeline of the watch, movement first, and then once 12 was as successful as it was clear that was the case to put the movement in. And then I suppose if you're sort of criticizing the Loco as not a sports watch, you're talking about the water resistance. And I think, having speaking to Will mainly about this, that was a real sort of wearability battle. It was a case of, every 12 in the collection bar the Loco is 100 meters water resistant with a screw down crown. And with the Loco, with this new movement, wearability was a real priority. So the case was completely overhauled. The lugs are completely different to any other 12 we've made, with the much steeper downturn and a sort of in cut into the underside to really have as much conformity as possible. And another part of that was the thickness. So yes, we could have made a slightly more water resistant watch here than the 3-bar stated. As a lot of people will know, and I'm not saying this officially, but we rate a watch to 3-bar. It's probably going to be okay for what the average consumer would be able to throw at it. But that battle was thickness. So I think Will said to take it up to 5 ATM or 100 ATM would have been literally 1 or 2 extra millimeters on the case thickness, and that's the crystals. The front and rear crystal thicknesses would have had to be greater to ensure that. And it was a case of wearability won out over the water resistance. That you enjoy wearability every day, whereas water resistance, if you're on holiday, a couple of times a year, that's when you call for that. So I don't think the team, I think with some launches like the June, it's clear that field was the brief and field was what they were looking to execute. But there were no focus groups that told us to make a Sonnery at our price point, and then there were no real focus groups that told us to make a new movement with a free sprung balance wheel on the dial side. So the brief is looser on some watches than other, I think it's fair to say.
I think it also depends how you define a sports watch. I mean, a sports watch category now, is sport is the word that it's been adopted, I guess, to talk about a whole genre of watches. But it's not a dive watch. A dive watch for sure should have decent water resistance. The kind of clues in the name, I guess. But for me, there's a lot of brands out there, PP being one, being various others that have got minimal water resistance numbers, but they're still definitively sports watches. So I think, for me, I think it falls into a kind of sports watch type category, although it also falls into that kind of artistic flair style watch, because it's not exactly really pigeonholed into any meaningful mainstream genre, is it?
yeah, I think the definitions can be elusive as sartorial elegance. You know, when you're in the UK, when you refer to a sports jacket, you're talking about a blazer with buttons and in tweed or something.
Exactly.
So loose definitions.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so we've got a couple of questions coming in. So Robert says, is it orange or McLaren papaya?
It is absolutely not McLaren papaya. It's Frisco orange, to give it its official name, is the orange on that Loco. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Von Krul says, for a watch like the Loco, I think 5-bar would be great. 3-bar isn't checking that box for water resistance, but honestly, it would be just fine, especially if it was a bit conservative compared to the actual water resistance. I mean, I wore, talk about blissful ignorance, I had that Speedmaster for years, 30 meters, and I swam with it and everything. I didn't even give it a second thought. I didn't even think to check the water resistance. Plus, it does have a screw-down crown as well, which... as well, doesn't it? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Although to be fair, you can make a push-pull crown good to 150 meters if you're careful with your gaskets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a common misconception for people, that if it's not got a screw-down crown, it's not going to be that waterproof. If it's got a non-screw-down crown and a bad seal set, probably don't take it in the water. If you've got a well-designed seal set, then to be honest, you can get quite considerable water resistance on watches. I mean, for a long time, there were no such thing as screw-down crowns. And sometimes, actually, for some brands, screw-down crown can be a lazy way to get water resistance because you can use it as a backstop. But it's not the be-all and end-all of water resistance as some people think it is.
Yeah. So, Patrick, can you talk much about... So this is almost... Well, it is a completely new, redesigned movement. So how long did that process take to design the movement so that the balance wheel and everything was on the top and the regulation?
Yeah, the timeline really starts, I believe, in 2020, pre-Belcanto, where I think Frank, technical director in Switzerland, in Biel, along with Adrian, who might be viewing, Adrian Bushman, our design director, had the idea essentially for a dial side balance wheel, and I saw a very early I'm going to get the prefix wrong, I think it was a C9 case with something like a dial side balance wheel off center, and that was just an idea, as you know, there are lots of exciting ideas that go around and then, you know, don't come to anything else. And I think, you know, the idea was obviously presented, you know, way back then. And then Mike, obviously, buck stops with Mike. I think at the time, financially and also from a technical perspective, we didn't have the supply chain links or the finance to pull something like this off. And I think we had the self-awareness to realise that. And with that, the project was put on hold. Meanwhile, you know, off the back of COVID and during COVID, Belcanto was starting to form, and you know, the focus from the technical side and Frank's time was being put towards FSO1, the module inside the Belcanto. So it was really put on hold, and then I believe it was 2022, just before Azuro launch. I think what Frank said is that he was in a meeting. I'm not sure he was running it, but it wasn't very interesting. I think it was about straps. And he describes himself in the film, his head is full of cogs and wheels, so you know, this sort of thing doesn't interest him much. And knowing the Belcanto design was sort of finalised by then, and you know, it was the first time we'd taken a big step in a different route in terms of our design language and dial architecture as well. The Belcanto was the first Christopher Ward to have an off-centre time-telling dial, I believe, except for regulators, Mark. I think you're about to pull me out there. Except for regulators.
Jumping hours, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but so off-centre cannon pinion then. And this idea was in his head, and obviously we've got the chiming works at the 6 o'clock on the Belcanto. And Frank was doodling and drew the Belcanto time-telling subdials with the supporting bridges. And then at the bottom sort of mirrored the bridges and then had a balance wheel. And this was sort of middle of 2022, and he showed it to the guys, showed it to Adrian, showed it to Will Brackfield, the senior designer, and they loved it essentially. And from there, that was where Will got involved with more sort of thumbnail drawings and sort of thinking about the way it would work. And I think a lot of the experiences from Belcanto of the way that Will on the design side and Frank on the technical side worked together to sort of Adrian Bushman describes it as a ping pong, going back and forth, trying not to drop the ball. It's an argument essentially, I suppose, between design and technical. But they were sort of building on the design, and what was the idea initially was, okay, there's a quick win here. The conversation was also, how do we follow Bel Canto once it launched and had the success that it did? How do we follow this? What's next? And the idea, I think, was that it was going to be a fairly simple thing to do, to take SH21, at the time our only in-house movement, and to make some minor adjustments, make some adjustments to bring the balance wheel to the dial side, essentially. But I think the key issue there was, Frank is a huge advocate for simplicity and also symmetry, I think, in a lot of the work he does. And those that know SH21, and Mark can see it in front of his eyes right now, the balance wheel is off center, so it's off to the right. And therefore, a lot of the designs that were being thrown around then featured 2 o'clock crowns, 4 o'clock crowns. And because there's no pusher like there is on the Bel Canto, that lack of symmetry was not acceptable for what they wanted to achieve with the watch. So I think then, probably, back end of 22 now, was the realization that it's sort of a Schindler's broom situation. I think CW003 and SH21, in the future 001, share 30% component parts, but just looking at them side by side, you can see how much has changed, and a lot of that work was in the pursuit of bringing that balance wheel dial side but also central, whilst keeping a 3 o'clock crown. More rambling, Sam, I'm sorry, but I think that's the
but the idea of having the barrel symmetry mimicking the dial side symmetry, so in that rigid line between 12 and 6, makes it look, my opinion, better from the back than the front, but it is a magnificent movement.
Yeah, photos.
Shades of some of the Armin Strom construction concepts, not their design, but their construction concepts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's it's a wonderful movement from the back.
Yeah, and I'm so happy they went manual wind, Mark. I'm sure you agree. We haven't mentioned yet the work that went into boosting the power reserve and modifying the barrels to offer that extra day.
And you achieve the power reserve without compromising the beat rate, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of the easy way to get greater power reserve is to do what ETA did with the Powermatic 80, just make it run slower and tweak it.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave is about to, sort of start throwing darts at me for that simplification, but it's one way of doing it.
I'll sharpen my darts at this point. I'm not ready to throw them, but
there's a core of truth in what I said.
There is a core of truth for sure. Yeah, I mean, what is it? Someone's saying there the only thing they'd change is to run it either at 2.5 or 3 hertz.
Make the balance wheel bigger.
Yeah, but then you've got a space issue as well. That's the other fundamental you need to be careful of.
I mean, you can tell that 003 has its roots in 001, partly because of the size, but the original size gave you those huge barrels to give you the power reserve.
Yeah.
And your description of Frank Stelzer being bored in a meeting about straps is a lot safer than your senior's description of Johannes Janker driving down an autobahn at 200 kilometers an hour while sketching the watch, while sketching the movement. So that's a much safer way to get inspiration, is being bored by straps, I think.
Frank's also into his cars, but he is fairly Germanic about safety, I think.
Yeah.
We've got a very generous super chat. James Bond, thank you so much. Hi, Horology, Tiny Dial, can you disrupt that meta? Maybe a statement there. Colby, you had a question.
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering, I noticed in the freewheeling documentary that there was a drawing board on which the dial was placed on a number of different points on the watch face. Did any of those actually make it into the prototype stage, or was the one that we see now, was that design the only one that advanced?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from a cost perspective, we tend to be fairly sure about big structural things like that by the time we get there. So no, the first prototypes even were central with a time-telling dial, but there were one or two interesting quirks to them. The very first pieces that came through were in titanium, interestingly, so were slightly lighter and slightly darker. But I think, if I'm correct, it came back to a pricing thing, and being so keen to bring this thing under 4,000 UK in GBP. So we went with steel. I think there was enough other stuff going on, but no off second dial prototypes.
I think what seeing that did was, because when I saw that drawing board, I thought those all look really cool. Like it made me have a lot of respect for watch designers who could do things an infinite number of ways, and they have to make all these decisions about what they are actually going to do. And there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough, because I'm sure if you allow many of those watchers on that page to live out their lives, then a lot of them would encounter success too. But obviously you've got to hedge your bets. You've got to make your bet, I suppose.
Yeah, and some of those the initial 5 or 6 thumbnail concepts that Will Brackfield came up with, some of those were crazy. They sort of just crazy enough to hit my buy list on the spot, but I know my taste isn't widely shared.
Very self-aware of you, Mark.
So Michael keeps asking about the loco, meaning crazy in Spanish. I mean, I've been living in America. That's immediately what you think of loco, as in Spanish for, because we've got this El Pollo Loco here, the crazy chicken fast food restaurant.
Okay.
For anybody that doesn't know the background to the name, do you mind just talking through like why it's called Loco?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, that sounds like a fantastic collaboration piece, with chicken inspiration.
Just with the chicken on the
potentially. Dial. But Loco was Mike France. So again, if you've seen the film, you'll know, and you hear the watch referred to as the open balance for 90% of the film, and that was the case with us. And in fact, I think Sam, the first press release you'll have seen, said, this was sent in, I don't know, maybe early March, and it said working title, the open balance. And from a PR perspective, some journalists may not open your email, some will definitely just open it once. So if that's your one shot to get to them and they're going to make a piece for launch day, please don't put the wrong name in. So that was a challenge. But yeah, I mean, the two elements really that Mike wanted to get across in the name was this idea of constant motion. I think Will obviously loves the bel canto, and it's done very well for us. But if he has a criticism for the watch, it's that it's inanimate for most of the time. It's on your wrist. Obviously, once an hour, it does its thing. But the part of the reason, the main reason for bringing the balance wheel to the front is to offer this visual interest, and again going for the for the route we did in terms of having quite a nice balance wheel. So this idea of locomotion, constant motion was part of it. And then as you say, we thought what we did with the Loco is fairly crazy and fairly audacious. So that was I mean, you look at the Limousine Ardenne, the Freak, the Mad One. It's all in that vein. And I mean, there were a lot of ideas floating around. Interestingly, I saw Chris from Popping Crowns. Sam, I think you're connected. Did a great Instagram post yesterday where he, obviously, I think someone else has pointed out in the chat, locomotive, which in the UK, which also means choo-choo train. But Chris posted a carousel on Instagram of all the front-ons of the Locos with the time-telling dial and the balance wheel, and then some classic steam trains with, I think, a light maybe at the top of the face, and then the thing to open the front, I guess. And that's one of those things where that really could have, no one had that idea. I'm sure nobody had that, drew that connection, that side of launch, but it's another good take on it. But yeah.
And you know what? It could have been so much worse. You could have been Mitsubishi calling an off-roader Pajero, which had a bit of a big issue when it went to certain markets.
Yeah, Pajero, what does it mean in certain markets?
Probably not for me to say that on Sam's live stream.
Yeah, so we're either going to get an Apollo Loco limited edition or a Kylie Minogue limited edition. Probably your next two possibilities there. So Michael says thank you for explaining the name. Yeah, and I suppose the back does look like a train's wheels as well, doesn't it? A steam train's wheels, perhaps if you turn it on its side. So
yeah, I
Patrick,
think Will is into steam trains. Sorry,
Patrick, were you in on that meeting where Mike France just came back from Australia and he dropped that bomb on everybody? Were you there in that room?
Yeah, I was. I wasn't not on camera, but yeah, there are a few of us in there. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the. I think why the film came out, I think as well as it did, is that this was all raw and genuine reactions in the room were genuine. Like we had sent the press release. We knew the name wasn't confirmed, so that's why we'd put working title. But we had a strong feeling. We were almost sure that was going to be the name, and it was just yet to be confirmed. So that's why we went out with it. So genuinely, the press release had gone the day before. I think he said that. Yeah, about a month ago, pretty much a month ago from today. So that all the creative work that goes on the website, designing the campaigns, the emails, and so on that feature the name heavily was a real kind of impact moment. So yeah, that was 100% real and 100% frightening. But Anna put it quite well. My boss, head of comms, for that, for Mike to take 5 or 6 weeks off, which is the first time he's taken that long off, by the way, and I think in 20 years of Christopher Ward, and the first time he'd been to Australia, for the single change, considering all that was going on with the watch and the campaign, to be the name was probably a pretty good result for us. It could have been worse.
So, if anybody that's not seen the if everybody doesn't know, there's a full hour-long documentary, isn't there, detailing the watch, which I'm sure other watch companies have done this, but I don't remember Christopher Ward. I certainly haven't seen.
Yeah. I mean, again, Mike's idea. A lot of them are. Not even that long ago. I believe it was about 6 or 7 months ago. Last year, we had this idea, and again, those that have seen the film, it really is sort of details the 4 or 5 months leading up to a couple of weeks before launch is where a lot of the filming takes place, and therefore a lot of the subject matter is samples and getting these samples built. We did proper production samples with the Loco. But it does also tell sort of the pre-story as well. But yeah, we had a camera team in Maidenhead from the end of December until, again, a couple of weeks ago, and also a camera team in Beale, in the office there, in the atelier for the same timeline. So it took some serious getting used to, I think, for some of my colleagues more than others. But any conversation, any meeting, any call about this watch, about this project had to be filmed, and that was what everybody sort of agreed to initially, and that's exactly what happened. So it got easier, and as we bonded more and more with these camera guys that were just dropped in the office all of a sudden, and we started spending 8 hours a day with them. They were fantastic because they were camera operators, but they really had creative hats on, and they had the sort of boldness to go, and if Josh, the cameraman in the UK, overheard Mike talking to Sarah, the COO, about something that sounded important, he would barge in and say, whoa, guys, let me just pop these mics on you. So I think that's why what we were left with was really quite an authentic piece with a lot of real moments that, I think the approach we took was good because you might, storyboard something like this. We know roughly what's going to happen. There might be a bit of jeopardy in some of the moments, but the approach we took was to just film everything and then work the story out literally a couple of weeks before launch and a couple of weeks before we wanted to show the film. So yeah, interesting process to be a part of and good fun. I think we've got hundreds of hours of footage as well. So obviously a lot that couldn't make it into a 57-minute feature-length documentary, but that will be rolled out, over this year and maybe even next, little snippets and moments that didn't make the full cut. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, you got the important bit.
Edition.
Yeah, if we can afford the edit,
But you've got the important bit, which is Charlie the dog's birthday.
Yeah. True, that was important, but we play football every Wednesday night at Christopher Ward in Maidenhead. Just a few minutes down the road, we have 10 or 12 of us go and play five-a-side, and we did a full filming session with 2 or 3 quite nice finishes from myself that were caught on camera that did not appear in the final cut, which was disappointing. So hopefully you'll see some sort of Christopher Ward Match of the Day-esque edit over the coming months.
And I think Charlie the dog got his debut on my channel before he was famous.
I believe that's correct. Yeah,
I discovered the Charlie the dog.
legend, Christopher Ward legend.
Yeah,
I'd like to point out on this stream, actually, Charlie is not allowed in the atelier. There's an airlock, there's a grey room with 2 doors. Charlie does not pass through into that part of the business. He's only in the desk office.
So there's no dog hairs.
No dog hairs in your Loco.
A little bit of Charlie with every watch.
That's why it's called Loco. The watchmaker's picking dog hairs out of the watches. Drives them Loco.
No danger.
Do you want to have a go at Robert Coleman's comment about other brands inspiring it?
Yeah. Question for Patrick: what, if any, other brands have? Well, actually, this is about you. Inspired you. So I think James Blonde is asking the more direct one afterwards, and then. But
Oh, you are. Okay. Brands that inspired the design team. I mean, look, Will's a watch enthusiast, through and through, and has very varied mix of interest. I haven't heard him speak about. I mean, obviously, we're very upfront about the 12 generally when that came to launch, being heavily inspired by the greats, essentially, of the 70s and what's happened since then as well. I think it's fairly well known and fairly well documented that our design director Adrian has done some work for brand James mentions in the past. I believe since the Loco project began that he hasn't done any extra work with them. But yeah, I mean, look, there's it's a genre. There's I don't know how many watches there are in the genre, especially launched over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. But no, in terms of sort of similar inspirations that we would call out for the Loco, I think they're big fans of that kind of exposed movement architecture, bringing some things dial side, hiding others beneath a dial. But no, I don't think there are any sort of individual models that we'd call out as inspiration for this one.
Okay, awesome.
I was going to say putting the free sprung balance properly in front of the platine, rather than just cutting a hole in it like IWC, was so much better.
Well, it was interesting because when we do the marketing handover 3 or so months before the launch, or longer in the case of the Loco, they bring up the competitive landscape. So they bring up models that fit a similar bill at a variety of price points. And of course, for this one, similar to the Belcanto, there's not a lot of direct comparison. But what we do have, as you say, Mark, is, one of my first watches was a Seiko Presage with a hole in the dial, and you can see the movement, and that was £350, I think. So there's obviously levels to being able to view a balance wheel from the wrist. But yeah, I think as you rightly say, there's not too many other watches, especially under 5 figures, say that execute it in quite the same way as we've done with the Loco.
And I think most of the ones that do are willy waving because they're putting a tourbillon there rather than sort of hey, look, we could make a tourbillon. Yes, but so can the Chinese for a lot less. Right. Just having a tourbillon is not whilst you might want to say it's a definition of high horology, it's not that hard these days.
Well, the one that I kept seeing come up, and this came up a lot in the Christopher Ward enthusiasts group, was the new Chopek Antarctique tourbillon. But I don't think that's fair at all. I think it's like apples and oranges.
Well, I think it was launched just ahead of Watches and Wonders, wasn't it? So I'm not sure if the suggestion is that we turned around a Loco in the month and a half between now and Watches and Wonders based on that inspiration, but I'm not sure.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy.
That'd be working quickly anyway, yeah.
That would very quickly.
We work quick, but not quite that quick.
Could we just ask, Eric asked, it was the first with a question, but I thought we would leave it kind of towards the end of it. But for anybody ordering the Loco in the US, is there any sort of tariff concerns? Like how would Christopher Ward? I know DHL is your preferred shipper, and they were pausing shipping for a time, weren't they, to the US? So can you? I know that's not really your area, but you got any Can you speculate on it, or got any?
Yeah, and it's not my area, but it's it's widely discussed. We had daily stand-ups every morning for a month before launch, so we're all fairly across the other departments. I think so. So just to explain a little bit, the Loco is sold. Well, was sold. It's sold out now for the first batch, but on a pre-order. So we gave a very conservative delivery estimate of October. I think. We promise not to tell anyone. I think there may be one or two owners that take delivery a little bit before October, but that was our conservative estimate. So when taking payment, we just take payment for the price of the watch, full payment for the price of the watch, and any duties or tariffs that are applicable when delivery comes around will be applied sort of there and then. So. Not a full answer, I'm afraid. I think obviously with the situation changing as much as it is, we're not 100% on the way that'll play out come time for dispatch. And again with DHL, I think I saw some numbers last week. I was amazed to see we're one of their we're one of the largest customers in the UK in the category that we work in, and we obviously ship a fair few watches to the States. So what's great is because we offer them that level of business, we are very much in touch, and we are very much communicating with them and our account managers there. So it's not like we're waiting to hear a verdict from DHL that we then react to. We're sort of actively discussing options. But beyond that, I'm just not sure. I'm afraid. I think a few emails have gone out since the last couple of weeks with the way we were reacting in the moment, but obviously with things being as uncertain as they are, I think
Fluid.
We sort of have to fluid. Thank you, Dave. We have to sort of wait and see how it plays out.
And I have to say that the Christopher Ward emails about tariffs have been very, very helpful. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah. No, I think, to be fair, every business, regardless of whether it's watches or not, is in the same boat at the moment. If you don't know a number and you don't know what that number is going to be, then it is at best supposition and guesswork. And unfortunately, wherever you are in the world, when someone decides to change tariffs at the last minute, then you kind of have to deal with that. It's just one of those things you have to factor in. But I don't think anyone saw what was coming, and it has affected much more than the watch industry.
Yeah,
I put the Loco in my basket the other day and went all the way as far as you can get without buying it, and it was about 15%.
So I think any taxes that were applied at checkout don't include those potentially variable tariffs, Colby.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Okay.
At the moment there's a flat 10% plus the kind of
the
usual little kind of different tariffs and kind of watch sheet things that get charged. So they're probably just basing it on what the actual situation is here and now. If in 6 months' time there's another 50% or 10% or 5% or whatever it is, then I'll no doubt get dealt with at that point in time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Nicholas is asking here, isn't the first batch of 750 already sold out with a waiting list for later in the year? So is all the watches shipping in October, or was there 750 already made? Or
no, so watches will be as I say, we're saying watches will be shipped in October. So the production started a little while ago, but yeah, those pieces will be delivered then. And then just to touch on that again, one of the many learnings that we took from Belcanto, and even the 12X to a slightly lesser extent, was this distribution plan essentially, and the way we take orders and distribute watches. And I think the main verdict there was we want to take more control over that and manage expectations in a better way. So as I say, we're very, very confident in the delivery estimates that we've put on the first batch. I really, unless something crazy happens, don't see a world in which we're sending delay emails. And as I say, that there could be a chance that it's on its way early emails are going to be sent, which would be great news. But again, managing expectations. So October is what we're saying. And then with this, we will be once we're comfortable and once that production's in a really good place with those early pieces, I would have thought once deliveries have started being made, that's when we will open up a second batch, because that's when we feel sort of ready, if you like, to take on another production run. because obviously the LE conversation, comes about with most watches that we're very confident in. But again, democratizing this level of watch, it would be very un-Christopher Ward to limit this and call it a day there. So, we'll keep making the Loco, and if you want one and you can afford one, you will be able to have one at some point if you missed this first batch. But as the chap says there, there's a facility now on the website on the page to enter your email and essentially be told as soon as that second batch opens up. And yes, that will absolutely be before the end of the year, a fair bit earlier than that, I would have thought.
But the second drop deliveries will be 2026.
I honestly couldn't tell you, Mark. I believe not, to be honest. I believe there would be more pieces delivered this year, but I'm not 100% on that one, to be honest.
Okay, that's great.
So you've not missed out on any of the colours. It's not like the Belcanto where there was the limited edition colours.
No, exactly right. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, Drop 2 will be the same offering in terms of colours.
Cool. And I know Mike Pearson was saying that he was surprised that he thought people would buy it on the bracelet and add the rubber strap afterwards, but it seems like a lot of people just opted to go straight for the colour matched rubber strap.
Well, here you go. More insider stats, Sam. I think this was one of the. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The trends generally, whether it's a diver or a 12 or a Sealander or an Aquitaine, is huge bracelet preference and then extra straps added on as you can do. But yeah, with the Loco, I believe on launch day it was about 50-50, people taking straps on their own and then people taking a bracelet and quite often adding a strap as well. But again, going back to the hero idea for this, it was the bold colours and also the straps being a big part of that aesthetic. We're very proud of the 12 bracelet and the finishing that's gone on there, and the micro adjust on the clasp is included on those that go for the bracelet as well. But we've got this new clasp, new to the 12 clasp, the beta buckle on the rubber, so it is, it's super sporty. The rubber itself is a fair bit thinner than what those that have had experience with previous 12 rubber straps have seen, and it's got that texture as well, aggressive taper down to 16. So I think it just ticks a lot of boxes for people looking at that sort of independent avant-garde aesthetic. The rubbers go well.
Can you talk about the number of links and the micro adjust on the bracelet? Because I think one of the YouTube videos said it was 4 and then backtracked it to 2, which seems to have caused a lot of confusion. Can you clarify for us?
Yeah, I was very sorry to have done that to our mutual friend Chris. It was tough with bracelets initially. We only had, I think, literally 4 for the 12 samples total that we had. So a lot of the samples were going out just on straps, and that was fine. And then more bracelets came in. And I didn't play with them like I normally would, like I played with the first set that came in. And for some reason, there were 2 sets of these extendable link pairings on both sides of the clasp. So yes, the sample that Chris got in and Mark Kozlarich at Houdinki as well had these double extension, so that would be 6 mil of adjust, but no, in reality and on production pieces it's the single link on each side of the clasp, so 1.5 millimeters on each side for 3 millimeters total. And yeah, it was a mistake, it was an error, and the design team aren't here, so I'll throw them under the bus. It was their fault. They provided us with samples that
excellent work.
Yep.
I mean, I would rather they included too many than missed out the extended links on the samples. But yes, that was an error, Mark.
Well, when somebody, I forgot who, was doing a review of the 12X titanium, he didn't even realize that it had those extensions. And so he criticized that in the video.
That was a great video. Who was that?
Well, it wasn't me. I'll just put my hand.
No, it wasn't. No, but it was brilliant. And what we often
wasn't
see...
this time.
what we're really very lucky to see often is, but we do our best with community management and getting on comments and reacting to things, is the CW enthusiast group just getting on and correcting any misinformation just about as soon as any content drops. So that video you're referring to, I remember seeing half the comments in the first hour were people in varying levels of politeness correcting this gentleman on his observation.
Yeah.
Really?
On the class.
Internet? Varying levels of politeness
Well,
on the
if you
internet?
believe it, Dave,
Never
yeah.
heard of such a thing.
There was very quickly a pinned comment saying, "Yes, I know."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny. I mean, because I've been making Christopher Ward content for a while, for a while now. It's for some reason it's the brand that I think commenters love to suddenly become like watch design experts. They're like, oh, well, it'd be good if it was this, or if that was a little bit bigger, or if that was a little bit shorter, or if there was something like this. It always like amuses me. Like it was always the name. It was always the name on the dial, wasn't it? Oh, I don't like Char Ward. Okay, well then there's Christopher Ward. Oh, I don't like Christopher Ward on the dial. Okay, well we took Christopher Ward off. Well, now it's just got a plain. Like it's like.
I think it's fair to say that regardless, the watch world is full of people that are watch designers. Us probably all included. Yeah,
100%.
there's always absolutely.
I'm
If only it just had fill in the blank, I would buy it.
Yeah,
We've all been
yeah.
guilty of it.
That's when we're down the pub instead of talking about football. We're like talking the same about the
Exactly. It's like, how did he manage to miss that penalty under all that pressure? I could have scored that goal. Maybe you couldn't.
That's exactly it.
And just think, if the brand was called Christophe Legare, which is Christopher Ward, would anybody be complaining? At least not in the UK. Oh, it's a sophisticated French name. It's got to be good. Christopher Ward, just some bloke in a pub, right?
If only we had a slightly more European co-founder, Mark.
Yeah.
But no, it was the most British name of the trio, as you'll all know, and that was the choice. But I think Nicholas made a great point off that comment, Sam, in the documentary. He was talking about British Watchmakers Day the 1st last year, and how he'd met a lot of people who, having seen a lot of these brands, Fizz obviously well included in that, doing so well and turning into a real business. Having these ideas and thinking, well, maybe I could take this idea somewhere, but the importance, as you say, Dave, of make a prototype, see it in the metal, just saying that three front crystals would be mad, in the pub, and then going and making it was is two very different things.
Do you know, as you'll know very well, Patrick, oft the things that people think are simple are actually some of the most difficult and quite often time-consuming and expensive things to change. Oh, could you not just change that bit in the dial? And you're like, have you ever understood how difficult it is to actually make a dial that's usable? It's the things that actually quite often the things that they think will be difficult are actually relatively straightforward.
Yeah, I think that the bespoke team are very, very very well used to that. Obviously, we have this whole part of the business, the bespoke department, where you can literally go in and spec up your pick a base model and the increasing amount of customization options. But yeah, absolutely, we've had our fair share of, well, could you just put the put the crown on the other side, or take one of the lugs off or something? And, they're very good at explaining why we can't do
even down to colours. The work that goes into getting the colour right, and even simply changing a colour and trying to put that different colour on the dial that's already been used can quite often result in something that you're not expecting, good and bad sometimes.
Yeah, I do think though, Sam, as you say, we are a brand that gets a lot of that. I think we bring it upon ourselves in some ways. If you cast your mind back a couple of months ago to the launch of the 1238, the whole teaser campaign and launch campaign was this. All the comments that we'd seen and collected about there's no mid-size, and if there was only a 38, I would buy it instantly, and so on and so on. And then of course we obliged and did the 38. So I think sometimes we do listen when we agree. Well, often actually. So I think we bring it on ourselves in some ways.
Also, I think some of your teasers are definitely. I think your teaser for the Second Snake. I was on Watch Crunch and people like, whoa, what could it possibly be? And I was like, it literally is showing you exactly what the watch is like.
Yeah. I love the different ways people go off teasers. Often spot on in a lot of cases. There are a lot of free swung balance wheel call outs, even just from when we announced the name of the documentary, Freewheeling. So there's some bright sparks in the comment section.
Patrick, I did have one quick question about the movement. And I know you're not. Maybe Will might be a better person to ask, or Mike. But is this movement? Will it be exclusive to this watch forever, or would you ever use it in another piece?
Well, I think the nature of it is something I've spoken to the team about. it was ground up, built for this watch. Is its primary use, and there are no short or really long term. Well, there's certainly no short term plans for any other use cases. I think, if it were to be used in anything else, it wouldn't be, dramatic. It's not. I think it's fair to say it's not going in a Trident, any day soon, just from the nature of the layout and what it is and so on. So certainly no plans for extensive use. Like say, SH21's found its way into the Sealander and the Trident and the 12. We're not going to, don't expect that of 003. But yeah, for the moment and for at least a little while, it's going to be the Loco is the option for CW003.
Yeah, or it might make it into a Mighty Singer.
Probably not, Sam. Probably not.
I think the other important thing is that this is not a limited edition watch. Like all watches, it's made in batches, but you're not just stopping selling it in 2026 or 2027.
Yeah,
it's not a limited edition watch.
No, by no means.
It's part of the core range.
Yeah.
I think it's the best way to think of that caliber is it's very much like building a Formula One engine. It's good for a Formula One car. It's not much use for anything else. And in the case of this movement, it's perfect for this watch, but probably not very suitable for anything else.
Very well said. I haven't spoken to you, Dave, since launch. What are your like? Can we have a like and a dislike from Dave Sharp?
In terms of the watch, I'm a big fan, to be honest. I think it's a great kind of progression for Christopher Ward as a brand. I think the Belcanto really kind of marked the brand out as not just wanting to produce pieces that pay tribute to lots of other things out there, but at an exceptionally good price. Let's be fair, that's what Christopher Ward did extremely well for a lot of years. Not everyone can afford 5, 6, 10,000 to buy their Rolex or their Omega or whatever else it is, and they want a really nice quality watch that emulates that to some degree, and that's what Christopher Ward were great for. But I think the Belcanto really broke them out that mold. No one saw it coming. Yes, it opened up the kind of the idea of a chiming style watch that would move into the realms of affordability for many people, and I think this is a great progression from it. I'm not necessarily the world's biggest fan of open worked watches as a general rule. That's just not particularly my vibe, but I think when it's well done, it deserves a tip of the hat, and I think in this case it's been done well because it's been done like that from the start. It was designed that way. It's not really an open worked watch. It's a watch that's got a caliber and a design that's been designed to be like that from the day one. It's not just take something that exists and cut holes in it, for want of a better way of describing it. So yeah, some of the colours I find a bit meh, but then that's me. I like punchy colours. The orange is all about me. I think it's a great looking watch. I think some of the more neutral colours, it probably doesn't do the watch the justice it deserves, because those are quite they're quite kind of understated colours, and I think the watch deserves something that gives it a bit of punch. So yeah, I think that is also a portrait that could deal with quite a few other punchy colours and or interesting takes on it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave. I'll certainly pass that on to Mr. Brackfield, or you will yourself in the coming days and weeks.
Oh, I'll never tell him anything that polite. Try harder. Maybe you'll make $1 million the next time.
He doesn't like it when people are polite to him.
Yeah,
no.
We might as well do the rounds then. Colby, what's your final on it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually have a 12X titanium that should be coming in tomorrow, and as I was thinking about what do I want to buy? I have this Snow Leopard. I have a Belcanto. What do I want to buy? I think for me, I prefer a running seconds. The Belcanto obviously doesn't have a running seconds, which actually you wouldn't want it to have. But then at the same time, I have this OCD where I kind of want it to chime exactly on the hour. So that's like kind of my only criticism of the Belcanto, but it doesn't really make sense for the design at all. And it's such a beautiful watch. This one, I went for the 12X tie because I wanted that running seconds hand. I think for me, I guess the one criticism would be for me, it doesn't quite have the charm of the Belcanto. Not enough to overcome the lack of a seconds hand, even though it's really just my preference. It's just a different design choice.
Yeah. Mark, you're up next. What's yours?
Have you bought one, Mark?
No. I think it's a magnificent piece of engineering. There's one of your press images of the back of the movement that makes it look so sculptural. The Belcanto has really put me off. Tiny little time-telling tiles at the top.
This one's bigger. This one's
he's
bigger.
old and blind.
Yeah, but it's let me see without doing the maths. This one is bigger. I think this watch for me would become like the Belcanto, something that I really admire, and I'm glad you made it, and I'm so glad it exists, but it's not for me. I have that same feeling about my Belcanto. It's something that I admire and can understand, but I love it with my head rather than my heart these days. And I've got a Belcanto.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. I've got a Belcanto.
No, I appreciate that, Mark.
But it's a magnificent thing. I just don't think I'm the customer for it.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. But you'll be glad to hear, Mark, legibility is a core theme across our next significant launch in a couple of months' time. So look out for that. Much easier to read.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. It's the same feelings as you, Mark. I love that it exists. It's exciting to see, Christopher Ward go from strength to strength. I mean, I am a traditional, I am a tool watch buyer. So that like the watches like that Dragonfly GMT still haunts my dreams. That one. So I love the classic Christopher Ward, but I'm so glad that it exists. Like it's such a cool thing to see how the company's progressed. So
I think for me as well, a final thing is I hope what it does do as well is you start to see that trickle down of, I think Christopher Ward have proven to nobody but themselves that they can do their own thing and that it works for them. I think the Belcanto and this Loco, it proves that they can do what they want, they do it their own way and it works. And if we start seeing some of that kind of, I guess, confidence filter down into what you could maybe regard as normal watches, then the future could be pretty exciting to see what the designers do, where they've kind of freed themselves from the bounds of thinking it has to kind of look or resemble like something else out there. Just do their own thing and think, right, okay, we can do it. Let's just see what we can come up with. And I think that will be the point where maybe the brand really sets it out. I mean, it's a serious, big, well-run business as it stands today, but it could really get its own identity going forward.
Yeah. Well, and I know we're running low on time, but I just want to compliment you, Patrick, and I'm going to assume that it was entirely your responsibility. From my perspective, I think I'm the only person here who didn't get a advanced press kit because I'm just a normal customer.
Well, you write for WatchGecko, I believe, do you, Colby?
No. Yep, just a normal customer, but it was like a masterpiece of coordinated marketing. So it just, when it hit, it exploded, and all you saw was, Loco everywhere. I thought it was really well done.
Thanks, Colby.
Watches and Wonders. What?
When? Who?
What that show was? What was that?
I have to tell you, Colby, generating that kind of effect is a heck of a lot easier with a watch like this one. So while we sent some emails and so on, I think I watched a lot of heavy lifting there. But I will let you in on. Obviously, we set goals and aspirations for these sorts of things and how we want it to play out. And to be honest, I know exactly what you're talking about when when your feed is full and there's nothing else. And if you're into watches and you follow some watch pages, you just can't miss a certain launch. And there's a few watches over the years that have done that, I think, for sure. But Miss Piggy, Instagram went pink for 2 or 3 days for me, and I'm sure for you guys. And you boot up all watch news and you look at what if you can take over more than half of all watch news, then that's real success. But so the goal was to beat Miss Piggy in terms of the scrolls. How many scrolls can you get before before you hit a an IWC ad or something. So no, I really appreciate that comment from you, Colby. Thank you ever so much.
Cool. What a great note to leave on. Yeah, cheers, Colby. So I'll end the stream for the viewers if the panel stays on. And yeah, big thanks to everyone for being so active in the comments. We really enjoyed all the comments. And we'll see you next week on Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.